Good morning, good morning, good morning. Man, it is great to see you guys here today. I hope you guys had a good week off of church and a wonderful Christmas and just some time with family and got to relax and hang out. And now we're back here in January starting this new series. So in the church world, it's a pretty common thing to kind of tie in with things like resolutions and life changes, and so there's often these series that are like New Year, New You, like how am I going to refresh, myself, and I've done that a lot in the past. I decided this year I wanted to do something a little bit different, and what I wanted to do is I wanted to just take the beginning of the year and read through the whole book of James, because if you do follow what James has to say, it will be a new year and a new you. So you're not going to lose 40 pounds by reading the book of James. I tried it. I read it twice just to find out, but it'll affect you. It'll affect you throughout eternity. So the book of James is one of my favorite books in the New Testament outside of the gospel, and I love it so much because it's just real practical. But before we dive in to the actual book itself, I want to talk a little bit about James, the person, because I think that might help you appreciate the approach that James has as he goes into this book. So James is the half-brother of Jesus. He's the half-brother because they shared a mother in Mary, but we just celebrated this, right? Jesus' dad is God, the Immaculate Conception, and so James's father was actually Joseph. They shared Mary as a mother. And even though Jesus and James were brothers, James didn't believe that he was the Messiah whenever he first started going out and speaking. In John chapter 7, verse 5, it tells us that for even his own brothers didn't believe in him. And this is probably because of a little bit of jealousy and that unbelief, like how can this dude that was snoring next to me in the bed last night be the Son of God? I probably didn't believe that all together. But then Paul tells us in 1 Corinthians 15 that James had this opportunity to meet Jesus and to see Jesus after he rose from the grave. It says in 1 Corinthians, it says, then he appeared to James and then to all the apostles. So James was one of the people that Jesus specifically sought out whenever he went after the resurrection. Even as the younger brother of Jesus, and he didn't quite believe in him, eventually he became a leader in the church, starting a church in Jerusalem, became one of the first martyrs. And I think that James, like James's account of all this, I think is a reason to really believe in the claim, so to say, of the resurrection. So James says he didn't believe that Jesus is the Son of God, and then he sees him after the resurrection, and how many would you believe if your sibling came to you and said, I am the Son of God? How many of you had a sibling that came to you and said, I am the Son of God? I might believe that my sibling was a spawn of Satan, but probably not the Son of God. So James had every reason not to believe in Jesus, but the resurrection is what changed his mind. The resurrection is what really let him know this is the Son of God. And James' book that he writes take this practical approach of wisdom that Jesus had and puts it in these little punchy application ready, go out and live it size chunks for you to do. It's real straightforward. It's real in your face. And you're going to see today, we're going to barely make it in there, and he's going to go out and just start challenging us right away. Like boom, boom, boom. And so this is how his book begins. James 1:1, it says, James, a servant of God and of the Lord Jesus Christ, to the 12 tribes scattered among the nations. So notice as he introduces himself in the beginning, he doesn't say, James, I am the brother of Jesus, because that's not relevant. But he's saying, he's writing this to these 12 tribes. The immediate audience was actually Jewish Christians at this time. And these 12 tribes of Israel had been driven out of their homeland and scattered around the world, and now they're living in this very unfamiliar and hostile territory, and they're dealing with some really uneasy times. And James uses this to speak to them, but we can also look at that as speaking to us today, because we are separated from our home, right? As Christians, our home is in heaven. And we are living in a very hostile environment right now. I mean, this earth, this culture falls within there as well, too. So he starts out by addressing these tribes, by addressing us. He welcomes us. He says, hey, man, this letter's to you. And then he starts right in verse 2, and he says, consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. He says, consider it joy that trouble's coming your way. Consider it joy that you're going to face trials. And you're going to have trials of many kinds. He's not just talking about spiritual trials, but he's saying there's also going to be pain, and there's going to be relational frustrations, and there's going to be career disappointment, and you're going to have crazy kids, and all that stuff. We should consider it joy, because these trials will test us, and the tests will produce good things in you. How many of you like tests? How many of you enjoy tests? Nobody, either we're not participating or nobody enjoys tests. I don't blame you. I don't like tests either. I remember whenever I was in college, I took this ornithology class. You guys know what that is? Ornithology is the study of birds. And we had this final exam that was coming up, and it was for half of the grade, and I was freaking out, and I studied hard, and I knew these different bird sounds and what bird they went to and these different species and whatever. And so I go in to go take this final, and I get in there, and it was just different. There weren't tests to take. All there was this one thing projected on the screen, and it had 25 different bird legs, just the legs. And at the bottom it said, identify every species of bird by its leg. I said, there is no way that I can figure this out. And so I went up to the professor and I said, man, this is not fair. There is no way. This is half of our grade and we have to identify these birds by the legs? That's ridiculous. And he said, well, the same thing. He said, yeah, but if you don't take this, you're going to fail the class because it's 50% of your grade. I said, I understand that, so I guess I'm just going to fail. And I get my stuff and I start to walk off, and the professor says, okay, that's how you want to do it. By the way, what's your name, son? I raised up my pant legs and I said, you tell me my name. How about that? I may have made up some of that story. But anyway, tests that we take, they reveal our weak spots in our knowledge. And it can be an opportunity to deepen our knowledge and learn from those gaps that we have of the things that we don't understand. And that's what trials do for us as well, too. They reveal the weak spots in our faith, and they give us opportunities to grow with them. Tim Keller says that affliction is how we move from this abstract knowledge of God to a personal encounter with Him. Those tests and those trials are how we move from just knowing there is a God or knowing facts about God. And I think there's a lot of people in this world, there's a whole lot of people that know a whole lot of facts about God. But they don't have a personal connection with God because they don't bring Him along in their trials. They're not moved in worship in those moments. They don't well up with emotion. They don't turn to Him in those times of distress. So that they may know all the stories in the Bible and all the things about God, but they've never brought Him into their suffering. And I'll tell you that overall, the church really does do a pretty poor job in preparing us for trials. You know, we kind of have this assumption in the church world that if you follow Jesus, everything is going to be good. And everything's going to turn out great. And the church can reinforce that. Life's good, life's beautiful. And if your life's bad, you're doing something wrong. But you have to understand that this is a lot more modern way of thinking that our life is just going to be good. Like a long time ago, people understood that life was going to be hard. It was going to be short, it was going to be painful, and it was going to be hard. And that's just what people knew. And in this culture now with the conveniences and the technology, we're told that life should be easy and that you should always be fulfilled and you should always be happy. So we're shocked when life goes wrong. But yet I guarantee you it will. I guarantee things are going to come your way. Despite everything that we have, we're still going to have heartache. We're still going to have pain. We're still going to have relationship issues. We're still going to have disappointment. Doesn't matter how rich you are, how poor you are, what your money is. Things are going to happen. So the bottom line, I say that to say we need these words from James just as much as those 12 tribes did in the beginning. Just as much as those people that were scattered around and lonely and lost and alone. So what we're going to do today is we're going to read through these first 6 verses here in James. And he gives us 3 commandments or 3 commands that we should do as we go and face trials. Because we're all going to face trials at different points in our life. You know, these 3 things that he commands us, the first one is about perspective. The second one is about patience. And the third one is about prayer. And if you're a note taker, you might want to write those down now because Michael Lackey's not here today, and I had to make all the slides. This is the only time they're going to be up there, okay? So, but anyway, we're gonna start with this first one, this first idea of perspective, and we're going to read verse 2 and 3 again. James says, "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance." Now, joy is not usually what I face when I go into a trial. Anger is something that I face whenever I go into a trial, especially if I don't deserve this. Why did this other person get away with this and I didn't? Or why did they get the reward and I didn't? Or God, where are you? Why would you make me go and deal with this situation? Or I might feel despair. That's pretty common as we go through issues and trials. Feel like things aren't ever going to change. Feel like we're never going to heal. I'm never going to get that big break. And what's the hardest in all these situations is when heaven feels silent in these moments that you're in these trials. It's like nothing changes. God's not talking to you. Like, God, I'll even take a no. I might be disappointed with the no, but if you give me a no, I'll know you're listening. I'll know that something's going on there. Kind of might feel like God is ignoring you. And James is telling us, consider it joy, because in this time, that's where God is producing the steadfastness in your life, the growth in your life. He's testing whether or not you trust him with your trial. I'll tell you from experience, one of the hardest things to do as a Christian, as you're going through life, is live through those blank spaces. Live through those spaces that it doesn't feel like God is doing anything, whenever really he's doing big work. It reminds me of the story of David's life. There's this blank space in his life. It actually comes right after verse 13. Chapter 16, verse 13 in the book of 1 Samuel. And it starts like this. It says, "So Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed him in the presence of his brothers." This is David that they're talking about. And from that day, the Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon David. And then Samuel went to Ramah. So Samuel anoints David, then Samuel blows out, and then there's this blank space. As a matter of fact, if you look in your Bible, from verse 13 to verse 14, it actually kind of starts a new story. There's this little like paragraph, just a little change. And the time from verse 13 to verse 14 is actually 7 years. So Samuel comes, he anoints David, he puts the oil on his head, the oil's still not even dry yet, he blows out of there, and then nothing. 7 years. He goes back out to the pasture, and he hangs out with sheep for 7 years. And I wonder what it was like for David in those 7 years. He's out there with the sheep. Like, aren't I going to be, like he didn't go on some speaking tour after he was anointed and say, here's my vision for Israel whenever I take over because I'm going to be king someday. Imagine the confusion that he had out there. God, I thought you wanted me to be king. God, I thought you had blessed me. These amazing things were going to happen to me. What we actually learn about David's life is during the 7 years is when all of the work that made David the David we know was going on. It's when he was out in the pasture that David developed the skill and the courage to go out and slay the giant. It's whenever he was out in the pasture that he learned the themes that would one day reemerge in Psalms 23. This time of trial, this time that he was out there for the 7 years, is whenever God was building steadfastness in his life. And David, as we know David, developed in that blank space between verse 13 and verse 14. Those 7 years. Consider it joy as you face these trials. Joy is not just this feeling that overcomes you. Joy is this byproduct of believing in the promises of God. So the second command we're going to look at is patience. Having patience in these trials and in these moments. In verse 4 it says, "Let perseverance finish its work, so that you may be mature and complete and not lacking anything." Trials do not automatically produce the good in you. You might have heard this before. Those things that don't kill me make me stronger. That's not actually true at all. There's a lot of things that don't kill you that can make you weaker and can tear you down. And trials, just because you go through a trial, it doesn't automatically produce strength in you and put good in you. For many, when you go through unexplained pain in your life, it turns more into bitterness and doubt and despair and anger and hatred. But you have a choice as you're going through these trials to do it on your own or to trust God and trust his good character and trust that he's going to help you through that. And that transformation isn't just automatic, but it's a choice that you have. Because a trial can bring you closer to God, or it can actually tear you further away from him. Reminds me of the story of this little bird that was going to fly south for the winter. And no, I can't tell what bird it is by his legs, but he woke up late. His little iPhone tweet thing didn't go off or whatever. Like he slept in. All his bird buddies flew out of there. They left, and he got a late start. And because he got a late start, he got stuck in this snowstorm. And as he's flying along, this ice forms up on his wings, and he can't fly anymore. They're all frozen, and so he goes and he crash lands in the ground, boom, and like he can't fly. He's like, "Great, man, I'm just gonna die here. Like there's nothing I can do. I'm just stuck here." And then this cow comes along, and trying to make this safe for church. The cow takes a dump on him, okay? Is that can we we'll just say this. So the cow takes a dump on him, and the bird's thinking in this moment, man, things just went from bad to worse. I cannot believe this. This is the worst thing ever. But then he realizes that this manure that's all over him is warm, and it's thawing his little wings out. And he's going to be able to fly again, and this is actually a good thing that happened to him. And he gets so excited that he starts just chirp, 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 chirping. And as he's chirping, it attracts this cat, and it comes and digs him out, and it eats him. So, there's 3 things that we can learn from this story. 1, not everybody that drops manure on you is your enemy. Number 2, not everybody that digs you out is your friend. And number 3, sometimes when you're in manure, it's helpful to just keep your little chirper shut. Patience. Just have patience and see what God is up to in your life. This is what James is saying. He's saying, let the perseverance do its work. There's times when you just have to be still. And you don't need the answer, and you're not going to get the answer. But you just have to rest in the character of your Heavenly Father. It reminds me of in Acts when it's talking about Paul and Silas, and they got unjustly imprisoned, and they'd gotten whipped and beaten and flogged and torn up and thrown in jail. And they're sitting in this this jail cell, and they're singing. Like singing worship songs in this moment where they're just like Their skin is torn from their body, and their backs are against these dirty walls, and they just choose to sing. And I don't know exactly what they were singing, but it was most likely something about the goodness of God, the goodness of his character. And they're in there and they're singing, God is so good, he's so good to me, or whatever. And then all of a sudden this earthquake happens, and the walls crumble and the chains fall off of them. And the jailer in this moment just falls to his knees and say, what do I have to do to be saved by this God of yours? What do I have to do to find joy in these moments of trial? What looked like was so bad for you, you still find joy in those moments. And every great hero, so to say, that we read about in the Bible, I use that term loosely because they're just people, but every great person in the Bible was at this point at some time that had to say, am I going to trust the good character of God, or am I going to let the chaos of this situation take me to despair? Let the perseverance finish its work. And that's the only way that you can be mature and complete and not lack anything. So we change our perspective as we go through these trials. We have patience that God is with us when we're in them. And the third thing that James tells us in the beginning of this book here is we need to pray. Have prayer. In verse 5, it goes on to say, if any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you. And I have good news for you too. God will help you. God will listen to you. God will give you wisdom. God will give you direction. God will give you insight. God will give you what you need to make it through the situation that you're in. Whatever resources you need to make it better and not make you bitter, God is there to provide them. But there is a condition. There's a but. It goes on in verse 6. It says, but when you ask, you must believe and not doubt, because the one who doubts is like a wave at sea, blown and tossed by the wind. That person should not be expected to receive anything from the Lord. Such a person is double-minded and unstable in all they do. So I want to be really clear about something that James is saying there. When James says, do this without doubting, he's not saying that you can't have questions or you can't wonder what God is doing or that's not what he's saying. He's not saying that you have to live with 100% certainty all the time. But what he's saying is that like I know every Christian that struggles at some time with doubt and confusion and those things. But he's saying when you go through these trials, he says, don't be double-minded. Don't hedge your bets. Don't on Sunday, like living in two minds. On Sunday, you're praying to God and you're saying, God, help me fix my problems. And then Monday, you go take care of whatever you want, however you want, without his guidance. On Sunday, you're like, God, fix my marriage. And then on Monday, you're just treating your spouse like crap. On Sunday, you're like, God, help me with my finances. And then Monday, you go out and you just blow a bunch of money and buy a bunch of stuff that you don't need. That's what he's saying, is don't be double-minded in this. You're asking God to do the work, but you're not listening to him or learning from him or being led by him. You're of two minds. Tony Evans is a pastor, and he says that a lot of people approach God with this mutual fund approach. I don't know if you know what a mutual fund is, but like it's where you take your money and you invest it in a whole bunch of dozens or hundreds or whatever of companies, instead of taking it all and putting it into one. You put it into one, it's high risk, high reward, but if you put it in a whole bunch of them, it's just safe. And that's fine for an investment strategy, but that's not how you can deal with the trials and troubles with God and your relationship with him. God, take this thing from me, but I'm going to hold on to this because it's super important to me. I can't trust you with it. And if you're going to receive help from God, you need to be able to lean all of your confidence in Him and do things His way. And when I say you lean all your weight on God, I'm not saying that you're going to do nothing about it. You're just going to give it to Him and walk away. Like, if you pray for healing, you're not going to go to the doctor. Like you've got to be responsible. But I'm saying that God expects us to be active in solving our own problems, but also be fully dependent in going to Him for the solutions. And this shows up in a couple of ways. Like the first way is you're leaving the outcome to Him, and you know that He is going to take care of this for you. So when you go to bed at night, you don't have to sit there and worry about it. You may be actively trying to solve your situation, but you don't have to just fret about it all night long. And the second way this shows up is when you refuse to step out of God's will in order to solve your situations. James says it's only when you lean on all your confidence to Him that He can help you with your problems. And is that what we're doing each day? Jesus repeatedly warned us as he talked that there's going to be times when you pray and you feel like nothing's happening. You feel like maybe I'm doing something wrong, because the spiritual people seem to talk to God all the time and He doesn't seem to be listening to me or answering me. Jesus actually told a parable because He knew that we would feel this way. And it starts off in Luke 18:1. It said, "Then Jesus told His disciples a parable to show them that they should always pray and never give up." Because He knew that we were going to want to give up when we felt like nothing was happening. This parable that He tells, it goes on, and there was this woman, and she had this injustice in her life, and she had gone to this crooked old judge and asked him to fix it, and he wouldn't, and then she just kept asking and asking and asking and asking. And finally, he relents because he's tired of listening to her, and he gives up, and he gives the woman what she wants. And the point of this parable isn't to compare God to an unjust judge, but it's to contrast that actually and say, if this woman can get what she wanted from this old crooked judge, how much is God, who loves you so much, going to help you whenever you're going through things? Perspective, patience, prayer. He is a God that will enter into your pain. He is a God that can take your pain. He went to the cross for you. He suffered in pain for you. And then 3 days later, He burst out of the grave so He could redeem my pain. Consider it joy when we go through trials. And how in the world do we do that? When we take it to Him and we put our trust in Him. Father, I come to You this morning as we start off in this book of James, and we learn just in these first little bits, just some difficult things to grasp in life. That when we're struggling, when we're in it, when we're going through it, that we can consider that joy because You're building us up. You're showing us the weak spots in our life. And Father, I just pray if there is anybody here today that is just dealing with those situations, those trials, those troubles, Lord, that as this message reaches their ears, that they can just take those burdens, take the hard situations, the children that are wandering away, the financial issues, the marital issues, whatever it is, And they can give that to you. And know that you're building them stronger. But we can put our full trust in you. Lord, I pray that as we continue throughout this series and this book, as James reveals these situations in our life, that Lord, that as we encounter different struggles, that this will continue to be in the front of our minds. Thank you for your love and your grace and the fact that you would care about me. Pray this in your name. Amen.